Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I have to say, it really is good to be here at the UKIP conference this year. I wasn't sure whether it was going to happen. I tell you something, you know how we often say never again in life, don't we? Quite often the morning after, in my case. But the one thing I will never be doing again, sir, is flying in a light aircraft anywhere. You have my absolute promise on that. I want to say that I'm sorry that Malcolm Pearson has stood down as leader, and I say that because he is a very fine man. You would not meet in any walk of life anybody more open, honest or decent than Malcolm. And he took this job on and he did it to the best of his abilities. He was very successful at fundraising. He tried to put some professional structures in place, and British public life has had Malcolm in the House of Lords since 1990, and I'm pleased that Malcolm took the decision for himself that he'd had enough, and I thought his resignation statement, where he openly said he didn't feel he was very good at party politics. What a wonderful contrast that was to our career class in Westminster. But he's still very much with us. He'll be back in the House of Lords, and in fact he's about as popular in the House of Lords as I am in the chamber in Strasbourg. So Malcolm will be back to business. Now for me, quite a lot has happened to me since the last conference, because I stood here before you a year ago saying that I was going to stand down as leader, that I found the burden of being the leader of a group in the European Parliament and leading the party a heavy one, and that I wanted to have a free shot at the Speaker, John Bercow, in the Buckingham constituency. Well, what I didn't know then was that David Cameron would come out and endorse John Bercow, and so effectively he became an official Conservative Party candidate, and that really was the end of my hopes in that seat. But I don't regret it, because you have to take risks in life, don't you? And I've never been frightened of taking risks, but occasionally they get you into some trouble. So of course, I guess the thing that really has dominated my life was that aeroplane crash on the morning of May the 6th. And I have to say that it was a truly horrible experience. I can still hear the noise of the plane as it hit the ground, and I remember vividly being trapped upside down in the wreckage, covered in petrol, and thinking to myself, if I get out of this, I'll be a very lucky boy indeed. Well, I got out of it, and whilst I've got one or two residual problems, you know, I have got some spinal problems, but frankly, given the severity of what I went through, I think I'm a very lucky guy indeed. And I take the view that having been through that and having a slightly bad back, I've got to take the view that the glass is half full and not half empty, so we should all drink to that. So the real question, I guess, that we're asking ourselves today is, who is the right person to lead this party? Well, I expect I have some support in this room, but perhaps not overwhelming, I don't know. Do I have the support if I were to put my name forward? I have to tell you that I've been agonising over this decision, because I still have the burden of the job in Brussels, a job that I think is very important indeed. The work that we do over there is now reaching millions of people through YouTube. The UKIP MEPs, who are more engaged now than they've ever been, are getting a lot of press coverage. And we should pride ourselves that it's UKIP that is the leading Eurosceptic party across the entire continent. So I've got a lot of work to do there. And in many ways, this decision has come at the wrong time for me, because I do have a bad back. I do get tired much more easily than I used to. And my stamina, frankly, is not what it used to be. I'm also concerned that if I put my name forward for this, once again, the burden, the strain that it places on the wife and the children is something that at times can be very unpleasant for them. So much of me says that I really ought to stand aside, that the timing for me isn't right. And I have to tell you, that was very much my position at dinner last night. But I've thought hard through a pretty sleepless night, and I made my mind up over a very good English breakfast, the likes of which you can't get in Brussels. And I feel now that I've done my job before, I know what it entails, I think I'm able to deliver good, simple, straightforward, understandable, deliverable messages that people pick up, and I think I'm the kind of campaigner that will lead from the front, and so I've decided that I will throw my hat into the ring and stand. Now, we've got much to sort out within the party. We've got to get more professional. The problems I mentioned earlier need to be dealt with. So let's not delude ourselves. We have a lot to do. Whilst our vote was up by 50% in a general election from the previous time, we still have to make ourselves relevant to elections at all levels, be that local, be that regional, or be that general elections. And policy, good policy, is part of the answer. But actually rolling our sleeves up and getting more professional about our planning, that's the other part of it. And I believe if we're seen again to be a real campaigning party out there on the streets, we will attract many thousands to our cause. And what I've noticed going around the country are the number of young people who are now turning to UKIP. And politically, this couldn't come at a better time, could it? I used to say that they look the same, they sound the same, and you couldn't put a cigarette paper between them. And nobody believed me. But look at it now. I mean, Labour are about to elect a leader who will be virtually indistinguishable from David Cameron or Nick Clegg. The Labour Party has completely turned its back on patriotic old Labour, and what we saw, certainly in the European elections, and I think a bit in the general election, is especially in the north of England, some of that patriotic old Labour vote coming to UKIP, and incidentally not in big numbers going to the BNP. And if one of the roles of UKIP in British politics is that we're here and we'll put the BNP out of business, that wouldn't be a bad thing to do, would it? And the Liberal Democrats. Look, most people who vote Liberal Democrat don't know what they stand for. They vote Liberal Democrat on the basis of a plague on both your houses. It's been the protest vote, and there are now going to be huge numbers of Liberal Democrats who in the past, oddly, would say to themselves, shall I vote Lib Dem or shall I vote UKIP? I mean, it seems incredible, but it's true. There'll be vast numbers of Lib Dems deeply unhappy about what the Lib Dems are doing in the coalition government, and I believe especially down here in the southwest of England where the Lib Dems are strong, there is nothing to stop UKIP going out there and taking significant numbers of Liberal Democrat votes. And then we come to the Tory party. I'd love £1 for everybody that said to me over the course of the last few years, well, of course, David's not saying much at the moment. But just wait until he gets into government. Just wait until he gets into government. My gosh, he'll be a real Conservative then. Well, let's just look. Just look at what Cameron, Clark and Hague have done in these first few weeks. Apparently prison is no longer a good idea for burglars and shoplifters. We've signed up to a European External Action Service. We've accepted in principle a European foreign policy. On virtually every issue, there now must be millions of people out there who have always voted Conservative, and our message to them has got to be, there is not a Conservative party any longer. It does not exist. The vacuum is massive. The political opportunities are there, ladies and gentlemen, They're greater than they ever were before. What we've got to do is to get ourselves in gear. I can't pretend that I'm going to be perfect, but I tell you this. If you choose me as your leader again, I will lead from the front as a campaigning politician, as somebody that is out there, meeting the public, garnering votes, and that is the example I would seek to give everybody in this party, and I really do genuinely believe that the best is yet to come. Thank you.
To find out more about who we are and what we stand for, go to the UK Independence Party website at www.ukip.org.